Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin, joined by my guy G-Sportz via the video call. G, how you doing, man? Glad to have you.
Always good to come on, man. How you making out?
I'm chilling, G. We got some transfer portal news for the fans. Got a couple of stories that we're going to tell, just if we think LSU is going to be able to work some things out in their transfer portal endeavors, right? The transfer portal is kind of murky sometimes. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes, you like at the craps table, wondering where the hell all your chips went. Yeah, hopefully LSU doesn't go down that path. Then we're going to talk about two underrated players that we got out of that wide receiver room. We're talking about skill players being added. We're talking about wide receiver Chad Ochocinco's giving flowers. I think we got two people that might potentially jump into that forefront. Two people that maybe not a lot of people are expecting. And then lastly, Saints head coaching search and our college football playoff prediction. So that's the layout for today. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, as usual, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them throughout the show, pop you up on the screen, and hit that like button for us as well. It helps support us and gets us out there. Start off with the portal, G. So this is what we're hearing. As of right now, LSU's got 3 visits slated for this week / this weekend. As of now, it's Auburn DB Keontae Scott. He's currently on campus. Tomorrow, North Carolina State DB Tamarcus Cooley should begin his visit. And then Friday, Texas A&M tight end Donovan Green will come in. Now, the tight end spot probably confuses a lot of people, right? Everyone sees Trudez Green, and he's bringing in, a million touchdowns a game, it seems like, and he looks like the guy. But, I mean, obviously, you're going to have to remind some people, you lose Mason Taylor, you lose Kamorian Pimpton, and then you also as good as he was and as good of a fit this was, you don't have to lean on someone like a Bo Bordelon in that blocking tight end spot. Now he can just be an offensive lineman. He can just be into that 5-man front comparatively to having to throw that 89 on. So my point being is this tight end, like, sure, he might want to be the guy. Sure, he could want to be a starter, but he's got a big role on the table in terms of being your blocking or your utility tight end if Trudez Green is going to be that receiving guy that we kind of expect him to be. And, I want to ask you a question about these DBs, G. Do you know if any of them can potentially play safety? Is that the vision for some of these guys, the Keontae Scotts, the Tamarcus Cooleys? What do you think is going on in that, and what are you hearing?
Um, I'm hearing that man. So Delane, the cornerback from Virginia Tech, he can play some safety. I think they're gonna start off with the vision of him playing corner, but if they don't like how things look in the spring, you could see Minnesota Delane playing some safety next year as well. So I think that's always a option for them that they could fall back on. I know they had talks with him about that, leading them to him signing with LSU. And then Toviano is going to be moving to safety. And I know that he might not have looked the best in that bowl game, but he's somebody like I talked about a couple of episodes ago that he's familiar with playing safety in high school. And I know the SEC is a different beast, but uh, I think he's somebody that's possibly going to have an opportunity to start at that position. We know about Deshaun Spears, who started a couple of games as a true freshman this year from Denver Springs, that people are excited about. Joel Rogers played a good bit in the bowl game. He's somebody that's probably going to have to take another step in the spring to get an opportunity to be on the field next year. But I think that the kid from NC State is somebody that is probably going to end up signing with LSU. The kid Scott from Auburn, from what I'm hearing, it's kind of a long shot if he ends up signing with LSU. But we'll see. Stranger things will happen. But I think, LSU is in a good place. You know, in the DB room. I think if they can get one safety signed going into that spring and have it going into that fall camp, I think they'll be all right. But don't sleep on Mansour Delane being somebody that plays a little safety next year.
I'm glad you dropped that gem because, I mean, I was just thinking going into that signing and just seeing what he's done in the past, he'd be a lock at corner. But hearing that he's got some versatility, that he could be plugged and play, kind of eases your nerves a little bit, G.
And Ashley Stamps. Ashley Stamps is somebody too that I could see possibly making a change to safety as well if they can't find what they're looking for in the portal.
Why do you think they would lean there? Is it more towards the length? Is it because he has experience in the scheme? What do you think would make him kind of be a good fit for that role switch?
I just think that Ashton is somebody that you know when you talk about next year, You think about Mansour Delane. You think about Jaheim Jackson coming from Florida. You think about DJ Pickett. You know, those guys I feel like are in the plans of the staff to be their top three corners next year. Not saying that Ashton Stamps can't be in that conversation, but I think that if they needed a safety and somebody with some experience on that roster already, I think Ashton Stamps could be somebody that they say, look, let's go play safety. All right. Like I told you, Mansour Delane is somebody they already talked to about that before he signed with LSU. So be on the lookout for that possibly with Ashton Stamps and Mansour Delane playing a little safety next year.
All right. Makes sense, especially, if you're going to be in a very competitive role, it's probably your best bet to be able to keep getting some field time, keep getting some experience out there, maybe complimenting the team in their best regards. I want to talk to you about those silent hits that we've been hearing about, right? Apparently LSU's got a safety that they're waiting to potentially get eliminated or potentially win the national championship here in these college football playoffs. Do you think that you kind of start to get those wheels moving after this weekend? Or, when does that kind of come to fruition?
You talking about is them LSU trying to get another safety?
Out of this portal.
As we all know, they get 5 days after the team is eliminated to be able to get a safety that's in the playoffs. So I think if they can get one, I've been hearing that they possibly could get two, but if they can get one, man, I think they'll be good going into that spring, going into the fall camp. So could it be on one of these teams that's in the playoff right now? Possibly. We'll see. And don't forget that the portal will open up again after the springtime. So I think a lot of things will get suited out once the spring starts. They gonna move people around, and I think they gonna play around with Mansour Delane playing a little safety sometime in spring and see how it looks. They're gonna play around with Ashton Stamps playing safety a little bit and see how it looks. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it all shake out.
And to kind of build off of the point of the depth and just having all those pieces in the room. I mean, look, that wasn't LSU a few years ago. I feel like that's kind of played into the point of that process and the path that Brian Kelly's tried to bring to LSU, right? Get your younger guys developed and put into this scheme to where if an Ashton Stamps, after a year and a half of full experience, has to get thrown into a new position, a new, role, so to speak, he'll kind of be able to take it on the chin and be able to keep running. And also, I feel like that's kind of going to help LSU's case in terms of adding momentum and making this transfer portal class and the ranking that they have being the best class, being number one, actually turn it into something. I mean, you pair that with the return in production, and I feel like that's kind of how you avoid turning into teams like Ole Miss, Colorado, A&M, and I'm not throwing no slander. I'm just saying there are teams that through the last 2 years have been high-ranked portal classes, and it hasn't exactly planned out. I don't know if there's a science to it, but I'm just wondering what your thought process is on where LSU is at in that. Like, if fans see, okay, we're the number one portal class, is that something to even get excited about, or is that something that you're going to kind of have to see how it pans out because you're shooting darts at this point?
I mean, as we know, it's all a project. All right. On paper, I think LSU has one of the best rosters in the SEC going into next year. As of today, I think they got one of the best rosters. But that doesn't mean anything until you actually see it all get put together. This is a lot of different pieces they added to from the portal. All right. Guys coming from different cultures and different backgrounds. So you don't know how it's going to all play out. I mean, 14 transfers, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's not like you add 3 or 4. All right. And then you got to think about this. Some of these guys are coming off an injury, man. Like, you think about somebody like Destin Hill, who I think the world of, who I covered coming out of high school at Edna Carr, under-arm All-American, was one of the best prospects I ever covered at the receiver position in Louisiana. And I think he is a super talent, but he's coming off of a torn ACL, right? And for what I'm hearing that, he could possibly not participate in the spring because they want to make sure he's all the way healthy going into the season. So I think, that's a question mark. You think about somebody like Nick Anderson, who sat out majority of the year at Oklahoma with the groin, right? And the groin injury is something that's a lingering thing. He's not participating in the spring. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, that's a lot of unknown from those two guys. All right, Barry and Brown is probably the only one that's coming in from the receiver position that's going to probably participate in the spring. right? And so when I think about that, I look at it and say to myself, is that receiver room going to be as talented as we think? If all those guys are healthy, hell yeah, they'll be one of the best in the country. But if those guys are not 100% or they're not themselves like we known them to be in the past before the injury, uh, things could be a little different with that offense. It cannot be as explosive as we thought. And so I just think that when you say you like a team roster on paper, you're gonna like it. But you got to see how it's going to all shake out. And you got to see how they're going to get acclimated to Brian Kelly's culture. I'm going to tell you something right now, man. Brian Kelly going to be on 1,000 in the spring and in the fall camp because he knows the pressure is on.
Mm-hmm.
You going in the year 4, man, nobody don't care about going to the LSU.com bowl. Nobody care about going to the Citrus Bowl. No, the only thing people care about right now in Baton Rouge is we in a 12-team playoff. And if you're not in that 12-team playoff, man, you can start hearing the rumors about, his buyout and, moving on. And I'm just telling you what's being said, in the Baton Rouge area, right? And, I know they spent a lot of money NIL-wise on his portal. Some of these guys they got in there. So they got to see it all come to fruition on the field. So how guys are going to take the hard coaching and when the pressure is on from Brian Kelly and that staff that they got to get it done this year. We don't know. I say it all the time, man. Sometimes when these guys get in the portal, they're in the portal for a reason. Some of them in there for good reasons. Some of them in there because they couldn't handle adversity what it was before. So you got to kind of see how it's going to all play out. I would hope that they did their homework on a lot of these guys and made sure they good character kids. But we'll see. But I said it and I'm going to say it again. On paper, though, I think they got one of the best rosters in the SEC.
For sure. And yeah, you're definitely going to have to see it pan out. And that's one of the first things that popped into my head when you see the number 1 class, you see all the big signings, you see all the hype start to build. It's kind of like, all right, well, I mean, we've seen this play out. I mean, I gave some bad examples, but there's also some good examples. You got, Oregon, Texas, they've been able to utilize that portal well. So it's definitely about how you calculate it and about what you pair it with. But that's a good point talking about Kelly and that sea heating up. That whole building is going to heat up there. It's going to get the climate control going to be necessary at Baton Rouge this season. Because what about a Verdin Verdict G-Sportz Bowl though? I'd be hyped for that. Let's get have a bowl game like that, man. Then
I like the ring of it.
It's probably the only thing I'll take here. I do want to ask you though. You think there's any more visits coming up here soon, or is LSU going to pretty much just be rounding it off at this number? I mean, like you said, they got a lot. We got 14 or 15 official after Destin Hill and the Thompson paperwork comes through. Do they hit 17, 18? Like, how many more could they even add?
I think right now, if in a perfect world, they would get 2 safeties and probably a linebacker, a Mike linebacker. I think if you do that, I think the roster should be pretty much set in my mind. And I know they got the tight end from Texas A&M coming. If you add him, I think that just bring more depth to that room. And but I when you look around on that roster, man, I think they did a good job of hitting their needs. We got you some old linemen in the portal. All right, you got somebody like Solomon Thomas who was an All-American, and I think is somebody that could possibly get some playing time next year on the O-line, right? I think he's that good and he has that mindset. I just think they're in a good place. And I'm excited to see it all gel together. And they're gonna have a short amount of time to get it to gel together because once you get to spring football, it might seem like a long time, but that's a short period of time from April to August to get it all to gel together, to get that chemistry, to get them to understand the culture, to understand how to move at practice and in that building in the city of Baton Rouge and gelling with their teammates, right? That's a short amount of time to be able to go out there and compete week 1 on the road at Clemson.
So, ACC champs.
Yeah. So, this is not going to be an easy task, but, I believe in Brian Kelly, man. I believe in his process, and I think that the sense of urgency that he's going to have in this spring and in the summer and at fall camp, I think it's going to be infectious over the team, and I think I can see them performing well if these guys that we talking about overcoming some of them injuries and they buy into his culture.
I agree. Let's talk about one of those players that you mentioned would have to overcome an injury, Destin Hill. You said something that kind of scared me a little bit. He might not play in the spring, and I think that's going to be a big storyline around him and how he's going to be able to hit the ground running. But you also were talking about the training aspect and how serious he is and how he's a gym rat. And I mean, I feel like that side of it could maybe ease that a little bit. And then for the guy on the right, if no one's familiar with him, Teron Francis, #1 wide receiver in Louisiana in this 2025 class, from Edna Carr as well as Destin Hill, two Edna Carr boys, boot boys. Everybody's talking about LSU being wide receiver U and the talent that comes out of the boot. Where here you go, you got another potential duo here that I think could just go right under everybody's nose here. G, what do you think about these two? And talk a little bit more about that Destin Hill injury and just if you think that could potentially slow some things down, or if he's just going to be able to avoid it and get past it.
We could start off with Teron Francis. They call him man child for a reason. Once he gets the ball in his hand, he's like a running back. Hard to bring him down to the ground. He plays with a certain level of physicality. You see, he wears the number 14 in high school because he kind of plays like DK Metcalf. Not as tall and big, but he has that physical frame. And he's definitely a talent. Then you got any kind of prospect coming out of Edna Carr High School, they're gonna be ready to play in college. They're gonna understand how to practice hard. They're gonna understand how to compete, and they're gonna have a mentality about this. So Teron Francis is definitely somebody that's gonna come in. And I think we'll have an opportunity to play on special teams. I don't see him really playing too much as a true freshman with how deep that room is. But I think he's somebody people should be excited about for the future. And just going back to Destin Hill, man, him not playing in the spring, that doesn't mean he can't have an impact on the season next year. It just means it's something to monitor. And I think we gotta kind of just gotta pump the brakes a little bit to try to just say, look, we know for sure that he's gonna be one of the guys in that room next year, right? And I know it's probably all precautionary, him not playing in the spring, but I think it's something that to just monitor and see how it's gonna all play out once fall camp starts. Because you got to realize he still got to learn the offense. He still got to learn all the signals. Got to learn all the checks. Got to get that chemistry with Garrett Nussmeier. Some of that stuff takes time, and so I think not playing in the spring. I'm not gonna say it's detrimental, but it's kind of a setback. It's kind of a setback. It's one thing if he was already at LSU and him and Cousin Nussmeier had that chemistry already, and he knew the playbook. But him coming in fresh like that, I think he's gonna have to put the foot on the gas when fall camp comes if he wants to get acclimated to that offense and gain that chemistry with Nussmeier.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be pretty pivotal here. But the amount of weapons, the amount of names, the amount of talent, the potential, everything that we're hearing. I mean, look, even if you add your Diamond Green tight end piece from A&M, just gets that much sweeter. I feel like you're getting better and better and better. And we used the analogy like 2 shows ago talking about Garrett Nussmeier and how, sometimes when you buy your first suit, it's not always the cleanest. You don't always look the trimmest. But once you tailor it, once you kind of know your style, what fits you, the colors that match you the best, then you're off to the races a little bit. So the more names and the more, moments I have like this where I feel like we got diamonds in the rough or just some dogs there that aren't really getting noticed, makes me feel like LSU's on the way up. Obviously, that guys gonna have to catch up, but I feel like it's a good.
And look, and it shouldn't be any pressure on Destin Hill or Nick Anderson to hurry back because Chris Hilton is returning, Aaron Anderson is returning, Davion Thomas is returning. You know what you get from Trey Green, right? You got Caden Durham in the backfield. You got Garrett Nussmeier back behind center. So it's no, it shouldn't be to press the panic button that Destin Hill is being brought along slowly. When he gets back for fall camp, or during the summer, I think, just bring him along slowly. And, I think his first year at LSU, you know, he should be somebody we look at to if he can give you a 300, 400-yard season and a couple touchdowns, I think that's lanyard. I think that's lanyard for him. All right. Because you got to remember, all right, he has 3 years of eligibility. So it's no reason to be concerned about, oh, he got to get it figured out this year. All right. And if he could just give him some kind of any kind of production around a 200-300-yard mark and a couple touchdowns, I think that's good. And I think that following year, you see Destin Hill have an opportunity to be one of the best, if not wide receiver one in that room. And then Chris Hilton will be going. Aaron Henderson probably be going. Xavier Thomas will be going. You see what I'm saying? And so things are changing after this year. So I think LSU fans should just be excited about the future of that wide receiver room with Destin Hill in it, with Nick Anderson, with Colin Billiard, with Jelani Watkins, and that's barring they all stay put and don't leave and get in the transfer portal.
I'm glad you said that about, the returning production and just all the stars you still got in that room that are going to be out there. Then you get to mix in these pieces like a Destin Hill, like a Teron Francis, every now and then a little bite out, a couple shots to the chest, make you lose your breath after you thought you had the first 4 in wraps. There's more. And then Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, I trust them to a point where I feel like if they got something and they know they got something, I think they can figure it out pretty quickly. And then I think they can implement it quick as well. I mean, we saw it with your dads. We saw it with Caden Durham. I'm going to segue to this real quick. We got George in the chat asking about the key for next year. He thinks it's a serious run game. And I feel like that goes hand in hand with the explosiveness we've seen in Caden Durham. I feel really confident because it's not just OCD. You still got Caleb Jackson. As of right now, you still got Harlan Berry, JT Lindsey, potentially Trey Holly. I feel like that room with what Frank Wilson's been able to mix up over there is looking damn good. G, what do you think about the run game and just, that transition to getting it a huge focal point of that offense?
Super talented running back room. Very, very talented. I think Caleb Jackson could be somebody you monitor as a flight risk after the spring. All right. I was kind of shocked he didn't get in the portal after the bowl game because he only had 3 carries. But I'm glad he stayed put. And, because he's somebody I think that is a good change up from Caden Durham. They're 2 different type of backs, right? And now you could bring JT Lindsey and Harlan Berry along slowly, right? You don't have to rush them into the SEC play and put them through that gauntlet so early like we had to do Caden Durham. Because if y'all remember, Caden Durham, battled some injuries this year, all right? And you don't want to put so much on a true freshman like that, especially like the running back position like we had to do Caden Durham. That was a unique situation. That's very uncommon. In the SEC, I know the kid Frazier from Georgia did it this year. I don't know if he was a true freshman. I know he's a freshman. But you don't want to put that kind of wear and tear on a freshman coming in like that. All right. And if Caleb Jackson stay put, I think that'll be big for the developmental process of Harlan Berry and JT Lindsey.
Yeah, I think so too as well. We got another one in the chat. It's got my gears turning in my head already. Creole Boys is asking and saying potentially Caleb Jackson could play the Josh Williams role. I'm not gonna say I don't know, but I feel like if anybody fits that role, that model, being able to take that pass under the guard, so to speak, it would be Caden Durham. I feel like he is the guy that you could almost get everything out of. I'm not saying you can't with Caleb Jackson. I just think he's more your power, your heavy guy. Maybe you get some pass blocking out of him. But what do you think about him in the receiving game?
What made Josh Williams so special was anything you asked him to do, he was going to get it done. You talk about pass protection. I thought he was the best pass protecting running back LSU had the last couple of years. You knew on 3rd down, if you put him in the game and somebody sent a double Mike blitz or they sent edge pressure, 6-man pressure off the edge, he was going to be able to hold his own, right? Caleb Jackson is going to have to be that person when he's in the game. If not, he can't be in the game on 3rd down, all right? Caden Durham, that's something he's going to have to improve on going into his 2nd year. And when you talk about some true freshmen like JT Lindsey and Harlan Berry, that's going to be new to them. And so I think that you don't have a Josh Williams type player in that room, but you have some guys in that room that can do it by committee. You know, you might not have a one person in that room that's just really, really good at pass protection or really, really good out the backfield. I think Harlem Berry is somebody that's going to be really, really good that you can motion out and, you know, throw screens to out the backfield. But I don't know if he's going to have that amount of opportunity in year one. We'll see. We'll see. But Josh Williams, that's going to be a tough role to fill, man. You know, I think a lot of people didn't appreciate what they had in Josh Williams. Super proud of a kid that walked on at LSU and just did everything the right way. Right. Might not be the most talented kid in the room, but he is always super productive. And you know when you called his name, he was gonna get it done.
Yep, and then you got that IQ about him too. I mean, when you're there for that long and you've got that many seasons plus that much experience in terms of what you've seen. I mean, we're not talking about just any 5 to 6 year span, right? We're talking about spans that saw a national championship, 2 Heisman trophies. Like you're seeing the cream of the cream in terms of football. Maurice Ford in the chat talking about Caleb Jackson and potentially getting that extra weight back off and how, everybody got excited, myself included. You hear someone getting beefed up and you're thinking, holy shit, they're running all over people. And then in time, you can kind of have a downside with it too. I feel like there's always a consequence, whether it be positive or negative in instances like this. And we kind of got to see it play out in that regard this time. Also, you talked about Caden Durham playing injured. Nobody really remembers that, him playing with a steel foot. Coach Kelly talking about around that South Carolina point, the 3 to 5 week span, how he's like 70%, 75%. I mean, he really played his best football, not at his healthy and full capabilities. That speaks a lot about his mindset, his work ethic, just the excitement he had to even have that opportunity. I mean, a lot of people probably didn't expect to see 29 in his freshman year get that many reps or get an opportunity in week 3. But, next man up, John Emery goes down. You got a lot of things that are happening in that room. And he was ready to seize the moment, and boy, did he, because I think he's going to be, without a shadow of a doubt, your lead runner for LSU next season. I'm excited. Feels good. Let's move over to the Saints talk real quick, G. We talked on Monday about just the search and our initial reaction. We talked about Aaron Glenn. And look, Drew Brees gave him the stamp, G. I think Drew Brees is the honorary, I'm not going to say mayor of New Orleans, but he's the honorary king. You know what I mean? Everybody respects what Drew Brees is saying. When Drew Brees is giving you some flowers, I feel like people are on the other end planting more seeds, trying to get you more. He also hypothesized maybe even a Clint Kubiak job offer, a job interview, but he never really had any steam behind that. I don't think he's mentioned in what the Saints are doing so far. Rizzy is. They are going to speak with him. They're also speaking with Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, LSU's offensive coordinator during their national championship run. They'll also talk to Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Gee, I kind of want to pick your brain about these 3 things, right? So, 4 coaching prospects potentially that we're talking about, 3 of them offensive minded. Are they deviating from that defensive minded style, or is this just a coincidence? And also, I got a question as well in terms of like, what's the timetable on consequences for this for the Saints, right? They get, quite frankly, a lot of decisions wrong, G. I mean, in terms of picking your quarterback, in terms of, unfortunately, picking your last head coach, sometimes choosing when to pay players, when not to pay players. I feel like there's been a culmination of things that go wrong. But if this goes wrong one more time, if you pick the wrong guy and the franchise doesn't head in that upward trajectory, does anybody get fired? Is there any more moves that have to be made? What's the fallout here if you get another big decision wrong?
Man, if you go back and you go on my social media pages on Instagram or Twitter, when they first hired Dennis Allen, I said I thought it was a bad hire. I thought they should have moved on and went got an offensive-minded head coach, because that's what the league is turning into. When you go look at the last all the Super Bowl winners over the last decade, is more offensive-minded head coaches than it is defensive-minded head coaches that won Super Bowls. That's just the trend of the league right now. And I thought that, I think that Aaron Glenn is somebody that I would make an exception for, because he's been in the Saints organization. He understands the culture. Him and Mickey Loomis has a relationship. He has a relationship with some people already in that building and on that staff. So it's just a little different dynamic. And go and coach under somebody like Dan Campbell, who a lot of people doubted coming in as a head coach, who was with the Saints organization as well at one time. I think Aaron Glenn learned a lot. And we all know he's a good defensive mind. You know, Amik Robinson has been raving about him since he's been in Detroit. He talks about how he's a player's coach, but he holds you accountable, and he knows ball, and he knows how to prepare and get you ready for on Sundays, no matter who's in the lineup. And I respect Amik Robinson's opinion because he's a student of the game and he's a film junkie. And I think that's high praises about Aaron Glenn. And you talk to people like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I have a relationship with, he raved about Aaron Glenn and his football IQ and how he understands how to get his players motivated and get them prepared for Sundays. And so I think the key with Aaron Glenn, though, if you're going to hire him, you got to get a really good OC coming in here. Like I said last episode, I think Doug Peterson would be somebody that I would try to go after. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Clint Kubiak. I thought he was handed a bad he was handed a bad hand this year with the roster and how the offensive line was decimated and he was down to your third string quarterback. So we can't hold Clint Kubiak to the fire because of how the Saints offense looked this year. You know, he played the hand he was dealt. And I thought the first two games of the season when the Saints was healthy, that was more of what Clint Kubiak was about versus what you saw the rest of the season. And so I think Clint Kubiak should be somebody that Aaron Glenn could consider keeping if you don't go get somebody like Doug Peterson. You know what I mean? But I don't think Clint Kubiak is ready to be a head coach. He hasn't done enough. This was his first year being an offensive coordinator. He just needs more skin in the game. Joe Brady is somebody I would not mind us hiring. All right. This guy is somebody that's coached one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Josh Allen. And he's played an intricate part into why that Bills offense has looked so good, even without a Stephon Diggs, right? I think that's a true testament of an offensive coordinator that could put up points without having all the weapons at his disposal. And I think Joe Brady is somebody that has a proven track record. All right. When he left, he turned LSU offense into one of the best, if not one of the best offenses we've seen in recent history. And then he moved on to the NFL. I know he didn't have a good stint with Carolina, but ever since he left, and you know, when he was at Carolina, that just was a bad situation altogether. But when he left Carolina, he's been with the Bills. I think he has played a big part into why the Bills offense has looked so good over the last few years. And he played a big part into Josh Allen's developmental process. So, and he's a young, innovative, minded coach. And like I just said in the beginning of this segment, it's an offensive minded league, man, and that's what the league is turning to. So, but even if you go sign somebody like Joe Brady, you got to make sure you bring a really good defensive coordinator.
Yep.
So, I would not be at all mad if we was able to hire Joe Brady or Aaron Glenn. That would be my two favorites.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be the two options they're leaning towards. At this point, it's going to be if they're going to want to be over there. I'm sure Aaron's going to have a lot of options. He's probably got 3 to 4, if not more, teams chomping at the bit for him. How about Dan Campbell though? What that's like the best seal of approval, if you will, right? That's how you know you're doing something right. You got both your coordinators the week before the playoffs or a few weeks before the playoffs getting job interviews. I mean, I know it's stressful and I know it's not what you want in terms of keeping a staff together and whatnot, but gee, Detroit hadn't had this happen in a long time, if not ever. The Lions are potentially one of the best teams in the NFL right now, if not the best team in the NFL. I give them the damn flowers. It hurts to say it as a former Packers, or not former. I'm still a Packers. My bad. As the Packers being a former champs of the AFC North, breaks my damn heart. Let's move into these college football playoff predictions real quick before we let you out of here, G. Notre Dame and Penn State. I don't like it. I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because the last few games, the last few times, if you will, that I've sat on this show and tried to predict these damn games, it didn't work out, G. Didn't work out. I thought Georgia was beating Notre Dame. Wrong. I thought Oregon would take Ohio State. Wrong. So I'm a little nervous to lead people astray today, but I hit the books. I tried to recalibrate how I felt. I didn't know how I felt for a while. I didn't know who the hell to pick. I didn't know it was pick 'em. Vegas didn't give me no lean. I'm going to rock with the team that not only beat the SEC champs, but did it in a convincing fashion. Didn't have a huge offensive explosion, was able to control the pace of the game, got a great defense, always getting turnovers. I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm going Notre Dame. Feel like that's the more probable outcome here. Denbrock and Riley Leonard, they got fireworks going on. I think Denbrock is an offensive mastermind, and even if the defense has struggles, they'll be able to pull themselves out of it. But Penn State, I mean, if you look at where they're at in terms of points per game, it's not like their offense is winning them these matchups. It's more than likely the defense and just them being able to kind of combat the opponents and the strength of schedule that they've been having. And I just think Notre Dame could be potentially on their way to a national championship. Now, as tough as it might be for an LSU fan to hear, as much as people are going to, poke fun at Brian Kelly and this and that, I think it's inevitable. I think Notre Dame will probably play the national championship. I'm not sure if I'll ride that over. The total's at 45. I mean, I'm sitting here harping on how both defenses are damn good. I don't even want to say pick the over. I'll say Notre Dame wins it. Notre Dame money line. That's my pick, G.
I'm going with Notre Dame as well. I keep talking about it. The physicality they played with against Georgia, I just didn't think they would be able to match the way Georgia imposes their will on you in the trenches for 4 quarters. And they proved me wrong. And if you could do that against Georgia, and look, I got enough sense to know that this Georgia team is not one of the best teams Kirby Smart has had since he's been there. I know that. But it's still Georgia, and they still got some really good players on that defense and on that offense, and they still got a bunch of first-rounders. So regardless if we feel like that Georgia team is not one of the best Kirby Smart has had, they still got dudes. And for Notre Dame to line up for 4 quarters and go toe-to-toe with them dudes and look like the most physical team, I was impressed. I like the way Mike Denbrock calls plays. I like the way Riley Leonard has controlled that team and made good decisions. I know he didn't throw for a whole lot of yards against Georgia, but he made some big throws when they needed on 3rd down. And defensively, he led on the back end by Xavier Watts. I think it's going to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. And you got people like Jordan Clark, who was a boot boy, Jaden Osbury, who was a boot boy. I got to shout him out. That defense just flying around and playing with a lot of confidence right now. And Marcus Freeman has done a great job with preparing them. And you could see that when they played Georgia, you could see how they looked all season. Just the way they come out and impose their will with that physicality week in and week out. So I anticipate, man, they'll beat Notre Dame. No disrespect to Notre Dame, but I just think that Notre Dame's offense doesn't wow me. There's not. I mean, not Notre Dame. Penn State. I'm not really too impressed with Penn State's offense. They don't have any creativity. It's really, really simple. They're trying to run power and lead with Allen and Singleton, and then they're trying to get you over the top on play action with the All-American tight end and Warren. And I just think that's not going to be good enough to beat Notre Dame. Will Penn State offense have some success? Yeah, they might have a few plays here and there where they make some pop plays and get a explosive play. But I just don't see them being able to do that consistently for 4 quarters and beat Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's defense is better than Penn State's defense. And so I think defense wins championships. When you talk about these type of programs, when you talk about Penn State, Notre Dame, because they've never been known for like just explosive offenses. Right. And so I think that gets Notre Dame into the championship game. I think they win this game 20-13.
Ooh, low scoring. I'll go. Let me get 28-17. I agree with the point about the defenses, though, right? If Penn State's biggest thing that they brought to the table through this season is that defensive presence, and they're going in and meeting another team that's going to bring that, if not a little more than that.
And I think Abdul Carter, I don't know his status on the game. I got to check on that, but I know he didn't get to finish the game against Boise.
Mm-hmm. They got 2 interesting injuries. I feel like last time I checked, it was early, a few days ago. They are leaning in the right direction, but you never know what smoke screens in the playoffs now. They're going to say one thing and then boom, hit you with another one last minute. It's football, baby. Gotta love it. I'm excited to see it. We'll be live again on Friday to break it down. G, I appreciate your time. But before everybody go, please hit the like button. Helps us grow. Helps put us.
We got some breaking news. Nick Underline, who was one of the beat writers for the Saints, just said that Ryan Ramczyk has just basically retired on paper.
That's more things that the Saints are going to have to potentially overcome. G, now let me ask you a quick overreaction. What does that mean for the Saints draft? Is it going O-line? Should they sniff around somebody like a Will Campbell or somebody like that? What's happening here? Don't they pick 9th, 10th? It could be
think
around Will
ninth.
Campbell range.
I think if Aaron Glenn gets the job, he's definitely going edge rusher. He
Okay.
gonna go get the heat. Yeah, if Aaron Glenn gets it, he gonna go draft the best edge rusher in the draft. Whether that's Abdul Carter or Pierce from Tennessee, he gonna go get the best edge rusher. I think that's just gonna be his mindset if he gets the job. If Joe Brady gets the job, I mean, quarterback wise, I mean, Shedeur and Cam Ward probably gonna be gone before they get to number 9.
100%.
You can't go quarterback, and I would hope they wouldn't reach after that. Maybe Joe Brady will get some receiver. Maybe he goes after Luther Burden. Maybe he goes get a tight end and go get Warren from Penn State or Loveland from Michigan. I don't know. We're gonna see.
I wanted to say something smart, Alec. I didn't want the viewers to immediately take it seriously. I was going to say Saints should go draft Carson Beck after that college.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
Bro, you didn't get impressed after that Georgia SMU game you saw with Carson Beck?
No.
What didn't impress you, G? I thought
I will say this. If Kelvin Banks, the left tackle for the Texas Longhorns, if he's on the board at number 9, I would not be opposed to them picking him. I would not. I think he's a day one starter in the NFL. I think he's that good. And now you can move Fuaga to right tackle and have Kelvin Banks at the left tackle. You got McCoy at center, Ruiz at the right guard, and I forgot who we had at left guard this year.
Yeah, it's bouncing around. What do you think about that pinning situation? What happens with him? Where he goes? How's he falling then?
I don't know. I think he has a team option or a player option. I don't know. I can't remember what's his status with his contract. I can't remember if he's going into his 4th year. I think he's going into his 4th year, huh? Trevor
It's
Penning.
3rd or 4th because
I think this was his 3rd year. He's going into his 4th year. I think he was a first round pick. So I think they're gonna have a team option or a player option. So I think it's up in Trevor Penning's his future is up in the air. And look, he did improve this year. But what you gonna have to pay him to keep him? Gotta think about it.
He was in the 2022 draft. So would that put?
I think he's going into his 4th year. I think he just finished his 3rd year and he's going into his 4th year.
Yeah, this is going to add some interesting layers to the Saints. I feel like it now. I'm not saying where they're leaning, but the fans got to worry, bro. You always hear that on Twitter. The trenches. Everybody loves to draft trenches in the New Orleans front office here for these draft picks.
Yeah.
Stay tuned though. If it's a need, it's a need. What you gonna do, G? Rebuild 1% better every day. Let's get better. Before y'all go, please, once again, hit that like button. Follow my guy G on Twitter at G_sports. Hit the subscribe button on both of our channels. Stay tuned. We'll be live again on Friday. I ain't forget about your steak, man. I ain't forget about it. I got you, bro. I got you. If you missed the damn joke about Carson Beck, that's where this stems from, viewers. If you want to go back and watch the monstrosity, I wouldn't advise it, but that's where the Carson Beck inside joke came from. Just a joke. We're not sitting here first round grade. And I ain't Mel Kiper over here slapping grades on OCB. Good luck to him, but we'll see how it goes, G.
All right.
Y'all have a good one.